Today, I plan on sharing 6 steps that our company has leveraged with a number of different businesses that have moved to Office 365. Steps that you've probably already considered, just sharing some methods that have worked for our clients. And although we're a training company and we offer some modalities that can assist with this, the idea behind this webinar is really this is information you can take and implement in your organization. You can do as much of it on your own as you'd like, or work with, training partners and so forth. My name is Dan St. Hilaire. I am an adoption specialist, and I engage with a number of our partners in various ways, including webinars like this. On-site processes, I assist companies with communication plans around their deployments. And I'll be presenting on the topic today. I'm not focusing on anything dealing with licensing, the various license types that are available for Office 365. I've got a great blog post out there about that topic. You can also work with your partner or Microsoft directly on some licensing information. Before I start, I would like to push out a poll just to get an idea of those that are attending today, where you are in your process with your deployment of 365. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that poll. And if you could just complete that for me, fill that in here. So let me go ahead and close that poll. About half of you have already deployed Office 365, and about half of you are deploying it right now. And we've got a few folks that are attending today that are planning in the next 3 months. So that does help me take a spin on the conversation. Ideally, we love to get involved before that deployment happens, but most of the time I'm actually working with companies that have deployed Office 365 and they're looking for ways to engage their users to leverage that service. So our conversation today, or my presentation today, will benefit everyone, no matter where you are in that particular process. So I'll go ahead and pull that poll down. Thanks again for attending. Moving to Office 365 is a very unique opportunity for organizations to bring a new modern way to their users and in the way that they work, providing anywhere access to documents and files across devices, less of an issue whether you're a Mac or PC shop now, access to cloud documents and being able to open documents on mobile devices like iPads and other tablet devices, the collaboration options that are available to businesses, the versioning control, the ability to send links to documents versus attachments, all some great features to Office 365 that make it a great decision to move. Other benefits that often are considered or thought about after deployment are options to reduce cost by eliminating duplicated types of services like WebEx or GoToMeeting. So oftentimes those tools still serve a purpose. We're a Microsoft shop ourselves. I use Skype on a daily basis, probably on an hourly basis, but today we're presenting through GoToWebinar. So each case can be made for the software, but the different tools that are available through 365 and the new tools that are always coming out make the ability to recognize cost savings a reality for a lot of organizations. So congratulations on that decision to deploy. So you've made that decision, right? You've probably, based on the fact that we've got about half that have deployed and half of our audience is deploying right now, you've probably already done some testing with a beta group. Maybe it was the IT group. You've got buy-in from the C-suite managers, hopefully at least ownership or the CEO. There's a cost that goes into this licensing, and they've realized that there's a benefit for that. So you've decided and you've made that decision to move, or you're moving, as you guys stated in the poll. What do you do now, right? How do you get your users engaged? This jump onto Office 365, the change for email is minimal for users. First step, you're typically moving your Exchange servers that were hosted on-prem into the cloud, and that for the most part will likely be seamless for your users unless they've accessed it in different ways on their mobile devices. There may be some changes that are identified there, but that first step or that first move to the cloud, getting Exchange in the mail up in the 365 tenant is really seamless for your users. The rest of that deployment is really like a no Office upgrade that we've had. So with Office 2016, although that's part of the the Office suite, there's not a big difference when you're looking at the application. but all the foundation of Office 365, OneDrive, SharePoint, team sites, groups, teams are all new tools and different ways for users to engage and work together more collaboratively. So the first step is identifying what your tipping point is. So I define what a tipping point is as it's something that's going to engage and pull your users along, and oftentimes that's going to be something that in your case it may be email, may be the first tipping point. What are you deploying first, and what are those benefits? Maybe it's access across devices. So just identifying what that tipping point is and understanding what that is and what the benefits of that is. So maybe it was an Outlook, maybe it was Skype for Business. I've worked with a number of clients that leverage Skype for Business before the 365 deployment. When they move Exchange, they move Skype for Business online. What are some of the benefits with that? What is OneDrive going to bring? What is SharePoint going to bring? Are you looking at SharePoint in an old way, like an intranet, or are you realizing SharePoint and the ability for users to create team sites through groups gives them the power to work in an efficient way without having to develop out a whole site. So identify what that tipping point is going to be, and then beyond that, what you want to do is define what the purpose of that deployment is, and be prepared to share that vision with your users. You're sharing that tipping point in the vision, and maybe it's a cost savings benefit. And the reason why you want to do that is we know users don't like change. Management sometimes doesn't like change. So the more awareness that you can provide and the more transparency that you have, the better off you are. So what is it? Is it secure access to email on mobile devices? Is that something your organization didn't allow previously? Or was it better communication? Is it better communication for your employees that are distributed? So defining what that is. And what you're starting to do is build a plan around your deployment and how you're going to engage those users, because your next step is going to be to define a communication team. So this is the one step that most every client that I've worked with has overlooked. And we come in, we work with IT, and everybody wears lots of hats already. They're responsible for the Windows 10 upgrades. They're the Exchange guy. They're the new admin for the 365 portal. Hey, by the way, you did SharePoint before. You are a SharePoint admin. You're in charge of these groups, this group functionality. But what companies often forget to do is define a communication team, and it goes a little bit deeper than just hey, who is going to send out an email about these things, right? What you're doing is you're coordinating with IT and understanding when things are going to happen. You're going to build a communication plan, and I've got a sample of a slide that I'll show at the end of the session. I'm going to talk about a few things, and then I'm going to list some examples of the session. I'm going to do my best to stay within the 30 minutes of our session. I'm going to try to go about 20 minutes, maybe a little over that, and then open for questions and answers. If you guys think of questions during the session, certainly type them in, and I'll address them as we get going. But who is sending that message? Maybe the first message or communication that goes out, it's from the owner or the CEO, and it's about the benefits and the reasons why you're moving to Office 365. It doesn't have to be detailed. Short and sweet's good, but there'll be other messages that will need to go out. You've probably already thought about that, right? Hey, users, we're moving your box. Leave your laptop on. Your Office version is going to get updated. Look, isn't this great? We got a restart. Consistent with Office 365 is change, right? So that'll be something that your communication team sees. You just saw an update request pop up on my screen, right? Well, with Office 365, there's new features that come out every month, right? Who's communicating that message to users? And there's lots of different ways you can communicate, right? It could be an email. I recommend looking at the fast track content that Microsoft has and customizing it for whatever your messaging might be, whatever your governance is around certain things. But leverage the tools that are already there. And I've got some samples of some templates that we've used with our clients. There's some posters. I've got a client that did something called a Buzz Day. and I think I have a slide that will talk a little bit more about that and what that is. But yeah, use what's already out there. Look at the fast track for templates and banners and things like that. And your message may be around the deployment dates, and then the topics that are relative to that. And first, again, is probably the Exchange. Natural progression usually is Skype, and then OneDrive with most of the clients we've worked with. So if you've defined who that's going to be, the next step is to start to identify who the champions are in the organization. So, number one was identifying your tipping point. Number two, defining that communication team. And now you're looking at identifying who your champions are, and who are they, right? Who is a good champion? Oftentimes it's early adopters, somebody that's used the technology outside of your environment. Sometimes it's somebody that's used Drive or Box, and they're excited that finally your company is deploying OneDrive to provide the collaboration features and maintain some control over the department. Maybe it's managers or supervisors. It's those people that are good with change. And I can't instill how important it is that from a top-up down approach this works. You can't have your CEO conducting meetings using Join Me if you want to have Skype be successful in your organization. What are the expectations of champions? You're right. It's not like they have excess time. What I'm looking for are champions that are going to help create tipping points, that want to use the technology, that may be the first group that you deploy. So they're not necessarily the people that are going to do training or pull users along. They're users that are going to want to use this technology to create efficiencies in the organization, right? They're the ones that understand creating a document or having a spreadsheet in a group or in OneDrive enables multiple users to input data at the same time. Whereas if it's on a local drive on a network, it's one user in there at a time. So those are the types of people you want to look for champions. So I know oftentimes, we're a company that provides training solutions. That term oftentimes thinks they're not necessarily the trainers, the people that are going to believe in the software that you're deploying. Or maybe they've asked you for a SharePoint site, you put them in the back burner. So maybe it's those managers, maybe it's supervisors. It's going to be different in every organization. What they're going to do is help with those tipping points. They're the ones that are going to start using the technology and pull the other users along. So if I'm a manager and I put a document up in the cloud, I'm a manager that creates a group for collaboration, for threaded conversations in a shared location for our documents. Typically, members on my team are probably going to be a member of another project or another team as well. That's how we work today. They'll see the benefits of that technology and they'll want to deploy it within their group. So identify tipping points. Number one, define communication team who's going to help get this message out. Identify your champions, and then we're on to educating your users and providing some blended learning options. So there's all sorts of things that you can do. I work with companies that do most of this themselves. Sometimes they plug in Knowledge Wave, myself or somebody else, provide a webinar. This morning, earlier this afternoon, we did a new user orientation webinar. It was around 30 minutes, about as long as this webinar is, and we give some brief information overview in what I call wow factors. So we build the excitement, we show users collaborating, we have an iPad where somebody signs it and it updates it on the screen. It's the same document. They see two people authoring a document at the same time. So you do things like that enable or build some excitement. So that might be one modality of options. It could be a webinar, it could be in person. I worked with a client that did a buzz day, so it was a session all day long. They had different 15-minute topics that they presented on. So they showed Skype. They showed somebody using Skype on a phone and then transitioning to a PC. They weren't teaching users how to do this stuff, right? That's key. It's just building some excitement around that for your users. And if you can do it, build a story at the same time, right? Well, Sally and Mark in marketing leveraged OneDrive to work on a PowerPoint while Mark was at home. I had to take some time off because he twisted his ankle, whatever the story might be. And you want to capture and start to identify some of that stuff. So what you're doing, though, is important that you do this is before, during, and post deployment. So let people know, have some posters. Microsoft has some out. I'm going to show you an example when I finish up today. I'll drop it in the attachment so that you guys have it. It's a Word document. You can go in and customize it and put your own message in it. Have information around. Build some excitement about why you're moving, right? during, after people are deployed, invite them into a session or get them into a webinar that shows them some of the new features. You're not going to teach them everything in a 1-hour session, but I also recommend that you don't send users to a full day of training. They just don't, they don't need it. They need to bite this elephant one bite at a time. They need to understand the value of having those documents in the cloud. And very importantly, they need to understand they can work the way that they always have, right? You need to make your users not be afraid of change by letting them know they can work the way they always have. And an example of that is having a cloud document in OneDrive by saving it to OneDrive from Word, right? That's how people work. Right now, they open Word, they create a new document, or they open an old document and they do a save as. So enabling and showing people that they can do that the same way, and that OneDrive is just their new shared network drive. It's just in the cloud is important. And getting that visual across to them that they can get that cloud document right from Word, or they can use File Explorer. Hopefully you're deploying Sync. And we do that when we demo. We show the online version of OneDrive, and we do a side-by-side of the File Explorer view, and then we actually will open a document in Word that is based on online. So letting them know that they can continue to work in the same fashion that they always have is important. So, but yeah, use the buzz days. Maybe it's a hands-on labs. On-demand videos are great. Leverage those videos in the messaging that you send, and it's ongoing. So it's ongoing engagement. I've had one client that set up some at the elbow time, and that's more costly to have a company come in or do it yourself to go out and touch each user to make sure that their service is up and running, and ask if they have any questions about the changes in the software. Maybe you set up a table where, if you're a large organization, users can come in and you can help them set up Outlook on the mobile device. You can, if you're using Intune, show them how to go through that process and provide that experience, provide that positive experience that they know that change isn't just happening, it's happening, and they're being provided some support along the way. Videos, you walk your talk. If you've got some short videos, reference those in your newsletters or your emails that you're sending out. Maybe host those videos and stream as part of Office 365. Maybe I've got a client that created a communication site around their deployment, and as users come in, they're shown how to follow that as part of their training. So, and then on that communication site is information about the different training sessions that are being made available to them. And keep them short, right? Keep them short and repeat them. Number 5, review and add additional tipping points. So I work with companies that deploy Office 365, and all they do is they do that email change. Some of them don't even tell the users they can go to office.com or outlook.com to access that content or their email, right? Then on the far extreme, I have companies that flip the switch on and they want their users to start leveraging Microsoft Teams. That's great. But I think a fine line is right in the middle, and rolling out these features over time, because if they can learn the fundamentals of how some of these features work, they do work very much the same. So understanding, the OneDrive file is a me file, that's my file, and yes, I may work with a couple of users, I may share that and rescind and pull back some of those permissions, but know that that document might at some point become a we document, or a document that should live in SharePoint for the organization, or maybe something in between where it's an our file, I call it, when it's more of a group type of file and you're using Office 365 groups for it. So if your first tipping point is the mobile mail, what is that next one? Is it Skype? So identify those, and you're going to build around that plan, so that communication, those communications are going to get updated, right? So if you've got a new feature you're rolling out, you've already got a template planned, an email that's going to go out and highlight that stuff. So yeah, define what's next. Maybe it's groups, maybe it's planner. And the last step really, again, kind of falls back to that communication team. And it's maintaining awareness for users. So remind them and engage them, whether it's a monthly newsletter, whatever your communication team has designed for templates. Maybe it's something that's going out at each stage or certain intervals. So maybe you're doing that. Host regular webinars, or partner with somebody that can do that for you. We offer 6 new webinars every month, always highlighting some of those new features that are available in Office 365, showing things like how planner tasks now can be pushed to an Outlook calendar. So those types of things. That is consistent. Office 365 change continually happens. So just a quick recap for you guys. Identify your tipping points. Define a communication team. I think it's very important to have that in place. I'm going to show you a slide here in just a minute. Identify those champions. Again, they're not your trainers, they're the people that want this technology. Leverage blending learning solutions before, during, and after. What works for you guys? What works for your time frame? Add additional tipping points, rinse and repeat, right? And continually maintain that awareness. So somebody mentioned about buzz days, 40 locations with about 10 being more than 25 staff. Webinars might be a great example. Why not leverage potentially in person and broadcast that out to those other locations? Leveraging Skype for Business as a solution. So that would be one way to cover some buzz days. I can't imagine having to travel to 40 different locations, but that may be something that would be beneficial, or you could have somebody lead at each location. So I'm going to share with an example of a timeline. So this is just an example of a timeline. Companies determine that they're going to deploy Office 365 to a PC. So, the first email may be a notification that goes out to managers. Hey, we're moving to Office 365. This is what your users are going to expect. Are there any concerns, right? Second email is going to go out to the user about the upgrade and what they can expect. The next email is a notification right before their mailbox is migrated to Office 365. And then there's a notification that goes out that lets them know that it's completed. And then at that point, you can do your buzz day and your excitement days, anytime in here in the early groups to build that awareness. Definitely have posters around there, but you'll want to create an awareness session. Now, when I typically do an awareness session, they're about 45 minutes because there's more engagement than a webinar like we're doing today, where we're creating those with the wow sessions, right? So this is after users been deployed, we do that. And what often happens after that is we've shown them what an Office 365 group is, but we've only spent 10 minutes doing it, and there's a lot to an Office 365 group. So we go back and we meet with that individual department to see how we can help them. We show them Planner and let them know that that's a group task management tool, much more powerful than Outlook. And hey, you don't need Microsoft Project for what you're looking for. So we show that, we expand that. I was working with one company, when we showed them Planner, somebody identified that they were looking at a competitive product. So just these awareness sessions can help identify ROI just by the fact that you've got people attending these and understanding a little bit more about what's going on. I will also share a example of a message. So this is message 1. So this company took a template. They branded it somewhat with their company colors, and they wanted orange because it's kind of the office. So just an update that hey, your department. This is the manager message that I gave an example or mentioned. So this is the first message on the timeline. So what we're looking at here is they went through the communication team with IT, developed what this message is, and they've done the beta and testing, so they know what the challenges are. They're going to call it out. They're letting users know that there's going to be some options. There's going to be an awareness session. There's some department sessions. There's going to be open houses they can come into. This is what it looks like as a actual, here's another example. Here's what it looks like in Outlook, right? This is a template for just awareness. So this is after the user has been deployed. Just calling some attention to that. It's another example. So these templates get sent out by a member of the communication team. Maybe the communication team just helps design these, and somebody in the IT that's grouping those users or migrating them and sending them out. So I think this particular communication plan had 8 messages. So this was message 8 in that process. And yeah, so I have a poster I'd like to show you guys too, and I'll drop this into the chat box. So this was a fast track poster. So this is Word, it's all editable. You can click in here and change your text. This promotion was around Outlook on the mobile and just basic online features. And then we talked about what those sessions would be. So this was the example where we did our rolling schedule, 15-minute session, 15 minutes off, 15-minute session throughout the day. And then we had some deeper dive sessions available as well. So I'd love to entertain questions from anybody. So what format works best? Well, I think it depends on the organization. So if you're referring to training online or in person, the gold standard is in person hands-on. But nowadays, companies don't have that flexibility oftentimes. And even if you offer training, will users come? And that's the importance of offering the blended modalities of training. So give them short bits of information where they can just click and learn about OneDrive and how to upload multiple files at once, right? There's a few different ways to do that. Maybe doing that in an email. So I mean, it's up to you and your organization. That's what the communication team tends to determine. How much training is needed? It depends. They're your users. Some users will need more than others. It's a different way of working, and I think creating those tipping points and getting particular users to leverage some of these features will pull people along. So the way I would answer that is just enough, right? How much training is needed? Just enough. Leverage different modalities. Our on-demand learning solution allows you to promote some content that's specific to how you're deploying and calling attention to particular features. So don't train them on teams if they haven't learned about groups. Promote them, make that service available, combine it with some email messaging, and maybe it's a webinar. When do you start conversations or in communications? Planning ideally happens before, so the 11% of you guys that are deploying in the next 3 months, start defining that flow of communication. Those that are deploying now, well, if you start communicating now, you still need to build that plan. And those that have already deployed, it's not too late. Call attention to the features that you would like to highlight, whether it's groups, OneDrive, and things along those lines. I've got companies that are starting to look at Teams. I have some companies that are waiting because Teams and Skype will be better integrated in the future. Thanks, Michael. The blended modality approach, exactly, right? IT's got plenty to do. So Michael mentions that he likes the blended modality and being able to kind of take a package solution and plug it in. And that's where we come in, right? And you can do as much as you want. You can promote our webinars out. I'll give you an example of our webinars. So we got our resources at knowledgewave.com. If you go to resources and you go to popular class schedule, you'll see an example of some of those webinars that we deliver. So these rotate, they're new every month. Topics come up based on what our clients are asking for. So we've got one using Outlook email on your iPhone. Great thing is that should say mobile phone, I think, because the Outlook app is similar across the Androids and iPhones. So these are always free for anybody that's subscribing to our learning site. Our price point is about $1 per user to leverage our plugin. So very affordable way to blend in some of those solutions. This is not a sales webinar, so I'm not going to talk anymore about that. Please do reach out to me if you do have any questions. I'm going to drop that awareness flyer into the files section here. And we can help provide some of those templates. I work with some companies where I go in and I help them formulate the communication plan based on the success we've had with other organizations. You can do that yourself, but it is something that's important. And thanks again for attending. Have a wonderful afternoon.